Amendment. Joining me now is constitutional expert Don Brown. He's a Navy JAG officer, former federal prosecutor, and Pentagon official. Thank you so much for being here to break all of this down on David Polluck Prime Time. Welcome to the show, my friend. Big landmark ruling out of D.C., and this is way more than redistricting, as I mentioned, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and David, there are actually two cases that have come down this week that basically fall on the same railroad track. One is out of Louisiana, as you mentioned, that is Calais versus Louisiana. And then there's one out of Texas, Abbott versus Texas. The Louisiana case, Abbott versus LULAC, but it's out of Texas. And the Louisiana case, as you pointed out, dealt initially with an activist court forcing the Republican Louisiana legislature beginning in 2024 to create a district that was a majority, African-American district, which is going against some of the cases that you already laid out, including the Harvard case. That case was, that order was given under the Voting Rights Act. A three-panel of the 11th Circuit struck it down, and the Supreme Court struck it down as being an unconstitutional violation of the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. Legislatures, under the Time, Place, and Manner Clause of Article 1, Section 4, Clause 4, the time, place, and manner of the election of members of the U.S. Senate and Congress is vested with the state legislatures. And so the legislatures have the right to draw these lines under a long precedent of the Supreme Court. And so two cases come out. And the other case out of Texas, under the Time, Place, and Manner Clause, the Texas legislature redrew in 2025. And that case was that redrawing was attacked by this group, LULAC, that's the Latin American group, and by the NAACP. And the Supreme Court in that case found that the Texas legislature does have the authority to draw those lines if they're politically motivated, as long as they're not racially motivated, and found that it wasn't racially motivated. And it looks like the era of unconstitutional so-called reverse discrimination and drawing congressional lines is about to come to an end. It's about time, and it should help the Republicans. There are about 5 or 6 states, including North Carolina, Ohio, Florida, Louisiana, and Texas, that are all redrawing that should be if things hold, a pickup for the Republicans and maybe help them to hold the House in the midterms.
Yeah, well, look, it's important to be there. And, the question is, how did we even get from 1978 to now? I mean, I'm a constitutionalist, so when I believe the conservative court is actually interpreting the Constitution the right way. But we've learned about this in law school ever since basically the Civil Rights Act. They started using it almost as a weapon. The left started using it almost as a weapon to kind of sidestep legislation and sort of say, hey, look, this is just the way it's going to be. And I believe a lot of unconstitutional things have been decided based on the good intention of some of the interpretations of equal protection. Do you think this actually will have larger scale impacts on some other cases that could potentially come before the court, interpretations that we might have had based on racial lines? Do you think it stops with redistricting?
Well, I do particularly, the Florida waited until after these cases were decided to basically begin to implement its redraw. And you may see litigation there. More litigation can spin out of North Carolina, Ohio, but the precedent between these two cases we're discussing is going to make it very, very difficult to have those lines struck down. Now, California is trying to do the same thing to get more Democrats. And of course, we know that Virginia moved last week with this really suspect referendum, which appears to have violated the Virginia Constitution and has been stayed by the Virginia courts for the time being. They're trying that as well. But at the end of the day, the Supreme Court has said you go back to Article 1, Section 4, Clause 4, Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1, and you give the General Assemblies or the legislatures of the states the right to draw their own lines. And if it's not primarily racially motivated, they can draw all they want to draw. And so I think you're going to see more litigation, but I think it's going to favor the good guys for a while. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, that's the hope. A lot of fantastic Supreme Court precedent coming down. An exciting time to be a lawyer, and a really exciting time to just be alive. And thank God for President Trump and his picks this court could have definitely gone a different direction had Trump not been elected in 2016, and we could have much different interpretations coming out today. This is going very well for us, and I imagine it'll continue to go well. Sir, thank you so much for being here today, and we'll continue to monitor this as we get closer to November.
Thank you, Dave. Really appreciate it. See you soon.
See you soon. Florida just redrew the map. 4 Democratic seats gone. The redistricting war has a winner. Full school board coming up next.